Hello everyone, this is Priyanka. Welcome to my channel Priyanka's IT School. Today I am sharing next tutorial on software testing and the topic is software testing type dynamic testing. Software testing is broadly categorized into two different types, static testing and dynamic testing. In previous tutorial I have already discussed about static testing and its technique. So let's see in a brief like what is static testing. Static testing is a process of software testing where we can simply test the software application without any execution, and that's the reason static testing is also referred as verification. So to perform verification we need to follow four different review techniques. First one is, let's say, informal review, second one is walkthrough, third one is inspection, and fourth one is technical review. Right now in this tutorial let's focus on dynamic testing. What is the concept of dynamic testing? What is mean by dynamic testing? So dynamic testing is a process of executing software application with the intention of finding defect. That's the reason dynamic testing also referred as validation. Okay, so we can validate software application by executing that entire software application. But now there is a question, how we can validate any software application? So here we need to understand the validation techniques, again validation types, or let's say dynamic testing types. So generally guys, whenever software get developed, that means whenever code is developed for a particular software application, after coding only we can go for execution process, right? So how we can perform validation? We can perform validation with the help of four different levels. How many different level we have? We have four different levels of software testing. First one is component testing, second one is integration testing, third one is system testing, and fourth one is user acceptance testing. But again there is, these concepts, these techniques are huge techniques, and again here there are very let's say many more concepts to be discussed, and that's the reason I'm sharing separate tutorial on each and every technique. Okay, so let's discuss first level in this tutorial, that is all about component testing. So dynamic testing, it is a part of where we can simply execute a software application. It is a complete process where we can simply execute a software application to find the defect. And here in this tutorial let's discuss first component, or we can say first level of software testing and first validation type, that is nothing but component testing. Okay, so let's see the basic agenda. We need to understand what is meant by component testing and what is the concept of agile TDD approach. So generally guys, this is a agile TDD technique. This we can use under at the time of component testing, and that's the reason I'm explaining this agile TDD approach in this tutorial. Now see, very first, how we can go for validation. So validation can be performed with the help of four different levels, right? These are the four levels we have: component testing, integration testing, system testing, and user acceptance testing. So let's focus only on component testing. What is exactly concept of component testing? Very first, what is mean by component? Component is nothing but smallest part of application. Clear? Any kind of feature, any kind of part, any kind of module, we can simply refer as component. Now here, what is component testing? Whenever we test smallest part of application in isolation, that particular process referred as component testing. Component testing means what? Let's say smallest part of application we can test in isolation. Now what is this concept? Let's see in deep. Okay, so let me explain what is meant by component testing. Okay, component is what? Or it is all about the particular part. Now let's take an example. Suppose if we have a banking application to test. Okay, koi bhi, let's say you can take any example. So banking application to be test. Now suppose, what are the different modules we have? We may have in banking application. So generally guys, what we have? So let's see, there is a famous module, let's say deposit, right? Then we have withdraw. Yes. Then we have, let's say account detail. Then fourth one is, let's say pin information or pin updation, right? Whatever you need to perform, you can simply add here. So let's understand these are the four different modules we have, right? Can I say this is what a module number one? This is nothing but a part number one of my banking application, right? This is considered as a module number two. This is considered as a module number three, and this is, let's see, module number four. Suppose I have only four different modules. There may be many more module to be available, right? But let's consider these are the four different module we have, right? What we need to do, like what is the concept of component testing? Whenever let's say every module get tested in isolation, separately, independently, then that process referred as component testing. Okay, so component testing is usually performed by whom? It is usually performed by developer. So here guys, developer is responsible to do component testing. So developer is responsible to write a code for this particular module, right? That means for deposit module, developer will simply write a code, and that code get tested by developer itself. That's the reason component testing is usually performed by whom? Developer. What is component testing? Whenever we test smallest part of application in isolation, that process, okay, process of testing smallest part of application in isolation, that concept referred as component testing. Okay, so this concept is important. Component testing again we can call, let's say, module testing or functional testing. Okay, so it is also referred as module, unit or function. Component is nothing but module, unit and function. So now let's understand the basic. Okay, what is exactly unit testing? So these are the key point to understand. Process of testing every module in isolation, that is component testing or unit testing. Main focus of component testing is testing functionality of each and every component or each and every module. Okay, so why we go for component testing? Because we need to make sure that that functionality of module is working as per the expected requirement, okay, which is given by the client. So if you ask me, let's say, what is the objective of component testing, then objective will be the very, simple, let's say, verifying whether the functional, non-functional behavior of component are as specified or are as designed. Okay, then it will simply reduce the risk of defect multiplication. Why? Because if you found a defect at component level, it will simply improve quality at the next level. That is, after component we can go for integration, then we can go for system, then we can go for user acceptance. So it will simply achieve and it will simply remove the defects from the application, right? Then main focus is finding defect in the component, right? Building confidence in the component. Okay, so building the confidence in the component, what you can say in terms of quality. Okay, we can simply improve the quality if you perform unit testing properly. But again, there is a question, who is responsible to conduct unit testing? Unit testing usually done by developer. Okay, but here let me tell you the interesting topic, that is agile development TDD approach. What is the concept of agile development TDD approach? Very first, what is the agile development process? Guys, agile is a software development methodology, we can say, where we can develop a software application in a series of increment, right? So these increments within a short time frame, right? So can I say agile is nothing but time box approach, right? It is used to develop the application which follows CI/CD pipeline. What is meant by CI/CD pipeline? Continuous integration, continuous delivery. Clear? So in agile development, we can develop the software application within a short time frame. Now what is the concept of TDD? Let's see. What is exactly meaning of TDD here? So TDD is nothing but test driven development approach. Okay, why this topic is important here? Because at the time of agile development, during component testing, we can simply follow TDD technique. Okay, so what is this TDD technique? Let's understand. TDD is all about test driven development. So this is important in agile development, as it is nothing but like agile request or requirement or agile design technique. Okay, this can be considered as a famous technique. Now what is TDD? TDD is an approach to development which involves test first approach. That means tester can write a test cases, and based on test cases developer can prepare a code. Okay, so this is example. Okay, this approach is an example of test first approach, TFA. This is an example of test first approach. Clear? So TDD is a test driven development, and which is an example of test first approach. What is the concept of test first approach? Name having meaning itself. Test first approach means what? Testing performed first before developing the code. Clear? That means in this technique, this agile development, we can say we can write automated component test cases, okay, before developing actual code for that entire software application. So this technique will help you to prepare automated test cases. Okay, now what is this technique? Let's see here. Based on the given requirement, okay, let me write here. Suppose whatever the client provide you in terms of requirement, based on the given requirement, we can simply prepare test cases. Now again there is a question. These test cases are called fail test cases, okay, or failing test cases. Why failing test cases? Because initially if your test case is ready, okay, now let's see, whenever software need to be executed, at that time test cases should be ready, right? And this is your software, that means code. If code is ready, test case is ready, then and then only we can perform execution process, and then only you will get to know that whether your test case is pass or whether your test case is fail. So in this process, in this TDD approach, what happened? Whenever first time you prepare test cases, but see, this is a process. Before development, only we can go for test case writing activity, right? So automation test case is now ready. But if your code is not ready and if you try to execute this test case, of course your answer will be fail because code is not ready yet. Right? That's the reason these test cases are called failing test cases. So once failing test cases are ready, based on these test cases, here your developer will prepare a code. Okay, so this code is implement just for success, we can say succeeding the entire test cases. Okay, so succeeding test cases, this code get prepared by developer. So what happened in TDD? Very first, tester prepare automation test cases. Those test cases we can call failing test cases. Based on the test cases, developer is responsible to write a code just to succeeding the entire test cases, right? Then only here execution process occur. Okay, simple. Test cases get implemented on that software application, that is nothing but on this code, and finally you will get an output. So as per the execution output, simply code get refactored. So here is a particular process, refactoring. What is the process of refactoring? So refactoring is a programming technique which is used to improve the code design, or let's say the entire coding technique. Okay, and this process, this cycle continue, we can say until we found pass status for every test case. Automation test case should be pass. Okay, so this cycle continue till the all test case get pass, and that's the reason this is a TDD, that is test first approach. Here based on requirement, tester prepare, in this technique used in agile. Okay, so based on requirement, tester prepares first test cases. Those test cases, simply developer prepare code for those test cases, and after that, after execution, refactoring process is there. So this is a concept of TDD, right, which we can use to improve production, improve development in agile development methodology, to develop the software application as per the client requirement. So here this is the entire TDD cycle, right? Very first there is a test case fail because test cases are ready, but maybe your software is not ready at that time. That means code is not ready. So based on test cases, code get developed just to pass those test cases, right? And then only updation is happen at the time of, in the sense of refactoring the code. So refactoring is a programming technique through which we can improve designing and coding part. So this is an example of, or this is the best example of test first approach, where testing is performed first before development. And why this process is important? Because this is we can do at the time of unit testing. Clear? So as an automation engineer, you are responsible to prepare test cases, or prepare component test cases at the time of component testing in agile development. Okay, so this is all about the component testing. Now what is important? Let's see what are the important factor we need to understand at the time of component testing. So very first, what kind of test basis we can refer at the time of component testing? Okay, what is mean by test basis? Test basis are nothing but reference documentation. Okay, so during component testing, what developer or what particular tester will refer? Simple, component requirement, detailed design and code is important to test at the time of component testing. We can refer all these information, all this documentation. Now, what is a typical test object? That means what you can test at the time of component testing. This can be the interview question. Okay, so typical test objects are, you can test component, you can test unit, you can test modules, you can test code, data structure, database module. Then there is a interesting concept of data conversion or migration program. What is the concept of data conversion or migration program? So migration is all about whenever your one particular data get converted from one location into another location, or let's say from one type to another type, then that process we referred as migration process. Okay, so if there is a data migration programs are available, simple, at the time of component testing developer can do this migration testing as well. Okay, so guys, this is all about the component testing. What you need to focus, what is component testing? Component testing is a process of testing smallest module, smallest part of application in isolation. Clear? What is the focus of component testing? Component testing focus is, always remember, test the functionality of component, right? Then next important is we need to understand who is responsible to perform component testing. Of course, component testing performed by developer who prepare a code for that particular component. That developer can simply do component testing. Okay, so again, to perform component testing, there are two ways available. Either we can go for manual way, either we can go for with the help of automation tool, that is the automation way. So again guys, there are various, what you can say, various tools, frameworks are available to do automation for this component testing. So the popular tool, let's discuss JUnit, NUnit, TestNG, Microsoft Unit Testing Framework. These are some popular tools and framework available to perform component testing. Now the last topic we need to discuss, yes, questions. What can be the questions on this topic? What is component or let's say unit testing? So process of testing smallest module in isolation, that is nothing but unit testing. Main focus is functionality. You need to focus, okay, this particular question. Now what is entry criteria for unit testing? What is the question meaning? Here we need to understand when we can start unit testing. So entry criteria means what? After code review we can start unit testing. Okay, so code review is the entry criteria for unit testing. What is exit criteria for unit testing? Once the application and all component get tested separately in isolation, we can simply exit from the unit testing level. Okay, who does unit testing? Fourth question, who does unit testing? So unit testing does always by whom? Yes, developer. So what are the common defect we can identify at the time of unit testing? Yes, this is a question which is very interesting. Yes, what kind of defect you can identify? So generally guys, defect related to any kind of functionality, let's say incorrect functionality, incorrect code, incorrect logic. Then if there is a problem of data, let's say data for problem and all, right, we can simply identify at the time of unit testing, nothing but component testing. So in this way, we have completed the first level, that is nothing but component testing. That's all for this tutorial, guys. Thanks for watching. Please do subscribe. Thank you.